The issue of zombie takeout is something I feel very strongly about. I hate it.
What's up? Welcome to episode 295 of Zombie Takeout, the B-Movie and Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, we've got a little announcement. The thing you've all been waiting for. Episode 300.
500.
Ha! I almost did a gag like in reference to that last week. I was going to do that bit, but I figured it would be too much of a hint.
Well, no one's guessed it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of strange that no one's guessed it, but...
It is, for the record, officially Monty Python and the Holy Grail. We have to do something really well known for our, 00 episodes.
We kind of give us a week off a little bit.
Well, I don't know. I'm actually curious about that because, it's been probably 20 years since I've seen it.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it kind of does lose the impact when you know everything that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you do get to a point of that movie where you really have noticed every little thing that's happened that they've put in there.
I don't know if I'm there yet. And it's been a long time, so I'm really curious to see how it holds up. I mean, it's Python. It's still going to be good. It's not like it's going to be risking anything lower than maybe a 3.5.
And the last time I saw it, though, I was seeing it with people that had never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just kind of like, they just didn't get it.
Oh.
And it was kind of like, wait, but that's...
How can you not get it?
It's like, but that's funny. It is what we call on our planet humor.
Apparently only if you're British or particularly twisted.
I don't know.
Anyway, on to this week's movie, which is from 1974, Rhinoceros. This is our tribute to the late, great Gene Wilder.
Damn, what a movie did we pick to
man. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by Absurdism. A movie just isn't a mouthwash without the surly cup of bicycle seat.
And also brought to you by Una. So, we begin with, he's kind of in a bad way, this gentleman. He's been drinking heavily. He's feeling disconnected from life. And he's rushing to meet his friend who... Oh, I don't know how you could describe Zero Mostel in this. He's
kind of every other Zero Mostel character, but turned up to 11.
Well, Zero Mostel I'm normally used to as like Pseudolus from A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. The con man, But
I'm thinking more of the producers because that's the one I'm more familiar with.
That's true. He's much more like his producer's role.
Mm-hmm.
In this, but he is just I guess he was a con man in that too, honestly.
Yeah.
But in this, he's sort of you want to say a dandy. I guess he's old fashioned. He's really set in people being physically fit and mentally straight, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And
which sets up some very nice contrasts between him and Wilder's character.
Right, and you could see he makes a show of not liking Gene Wilder's descent into I guess numbness.
Yeah.
But you kind of get the feeling that he enjoys it too. that it's a chance for someone that to be better than, to put down, to mold in his image. And, since Gene Wilder looks up to him, since he seems to have it all together, it really works out for him.
Yeah.
And then a rhinoceros charges down the street of the town.
And then it got weird.
Yes. It complete. And I mean, that probably went faster than the painfully long intro that they had for the movie.
You mean the actual credits?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was like almost 6 minutes, bad 70s music.
I kind of skipped through it.
I kind of missed most of it because I was having some technical difficulties with the website I was watching this on. And, but the rhinoceros charges down the city street, and, oh, wow. First, there's debate whether it really happened, of course. When he goes to his office to his coworkers, but people that saw it with their own eyes, they're still not believed. And all of this is well and good until, well, this hysterical woman comes in. Her husband isn't there, but he wanted her.
I get the impression he worked at the paper. Was it a newspaper?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Well, I think in the play it was a newspaper, but here they're accountants.
Oh, that's right, yeah. It kind of seemed like a newspaper still.
It did, but they were accountants, and it was almost tax season.
Okay.
And so she comes with the key to get to his drawer, but that's not important because he's a rhinoceros too.
Yeah.
And we slowly see, well, I guess not really slowly, but
no. Aside from that opening credit montage, nothing happens slowly in this movie.
Right. Everyone eventually becomes a rhinoceros, including the people he holds dear to Stanley.
Everyone except Stanley, Wilder's character.
And yes, we could spoil this for you because
it's Ionesco.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how it ends. He holds up on his own and screams that he will not capitulate, and that hilarity ensued, I guess you could say.
And there's text at the very beginning of this movie that kind of makes it feel like a documentary, despite the fact that it's saying none of this actually happened.
It's like the Earth is flat.
Actually, you should back up a little bit. Of course, as soon as Mr. Wilder passed away, we started talking about, what movie should we do for a tribute?
Yes.
And we were kind of back and forth on the Mel Brooks stuff and the stuff with Richard Pryor.
Of course, we love all of those movies.
Of course. And then you brought up this one, kind of saying, we'll never find it, if only we could do it. I Google it. I found it on Dailymotion, was it?
Yes.
And, here we are. So,
yeah.
Moral of the story, if there's something you don't think you can find, Google is your friend. Now, there's a bit at the beginning in a museum that I was going to nitpick because there was a line about fish lizards.
Fish lizards?
And then I remembered it's Ionesco.
Yeah. He's fucking with you. He knows exactly goddamn well what he's doing.
And there really are some great contrasts between Mostel's character and Wilder's character, John and Stanley. Mostel's character, John, is almost charmed. Everything he does, like on the way to this restaurant they're meeting at, just works out for him.
Right.
Whereas Stanley barely gets there on time.
Right. Stanley is almost a much more realistic character as opposed to John, who is just in his own world and just living by his own rules, kind of.
Which sets up a couple of the other nice contrasts. Stanley is getting on his case John is getting on Stanley's case about his alcoholism, and then they cut to John just stuffing food in his face.
Right. You need willpower.
And it really is the examined life versus the unexamined life. Stanley is leading the painful but examined life, and John is leading the charmed but unexamined life.
A lot of Ionesco goes back to just people imposing their wills on other people, and how much he resented the shit that he had to go through in Eastern Europe. That he had to leave, and the communist uprisings and the Nazis.
That adds a whole new layer to this movie.
Almost all of his work reflects that stance. He did the lesson, which is about this, teacher who just, spoiler alert, slowly murders his pupil pretty much just with language.
Oh, wow.
In the end.
And Wilder and Mostel really nailed the rhythm of Ionesco's work.
Oh,
because
God, yes.
There's a particular rhythm to his stuff that I really can't even describe.
And Karen Black, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is... The thing with his work is it goes from 0 to 100 and then back to 50 and then maybe negative 20 and then back up to 100 again. It's really hard to follow sometimes because it doesn't follow a natural rhythm.
But there's this particular rhythm with the dialogue that's very staccato, almost cutting each other off.
Oh, right.
And they nailed it perfectly. And I have to give the movie a lot of credit because aside from the intro, it wastes no time setting up. 11 minutes in, we get the first rhino.
And think about that. 6 of those 11 minutes were the credits.
Right. So 5 minutes of actual movie and rhino. And I also really love the blocking because it's practically choreography.
For us, this is the same guy that directed the movie version of Hair as well.
That explains it. It does have a very musical feel. There's a musical interlude during a dream sequence that was incredibly 70s.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely out there.
Probably the only part of the movie I didn't particularly enjoy, probably because of the music.
Well, that music was better than the credit music.
Yeah, I skipped over that music, as I said.
And then they repeat it again towards the end, and it's just kind of like this just pointless meandering with different instruments. Like, okay, now I'll take a turn playing the same couple notes over and over again. Like, okay.
But with the blocking, there are moments throughout the movie that really just look like dance.
Oh, definitely.
There's a scene where he's getting off of the bus, Stanley, and all these guys in fedoras lean over and obscure their face. All you see is their hats as he's trying to get past them. And there's a thing with a chair in the office. It really was choreography more than blocking.
It's all about the perils of individuality.
Yeah, that's really the point of the movie.
Well, the perils of keeping your individuality while everyone else is just becoming faceless or just joining the herd, as they refer to it.
If it was sheep instead of rhinos, it would have been too on the nose.
Right. Well, if you think about it, rhinos are even more on the nose because of, the thick skin.
Oh, okay.
The bellicose behavior, boorish behavior.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if sheep in that context is really a thing when this was done. Incidentally, do you know when this was written? I meant to look it up and I forgot.
I believe this was 59.
Okay. So really ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
Right. There's no doubt in my mind, if someone possessed the ability to time travel, it was Ionesco, because he knew exactly where we were heading.
Yeah.
It's the scene where Gene Wilder is talking about or lamenting that this couldn't be in some faraway land across an ocean, and that we could just watch news reports on it and special reports and panel discussions. I was like, there aren't even in 74, there were no 24-hour news,
no
channels.
That sort of journalism was really just becoming a thing in that around that time. That was the big deal with Vietnam.
Well, yeah, Vietnam, they made a big deal because they were showing it on the evening news and every night.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just like what, a couple hours a night? Not even.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But you could tell what he's talking about is what we are now.
Yeah.
Of just these horrible things happening, and us thinking that we're getting involved with it and knowing all about it by just merely watching it on TV or looking it up online, and that we somehow know what these people are going through and can empathize. My jaw dropped when they were talking about this, because it was, even for 74, it was 5 years ahead of its time at least.
Yeah. And I have in my notes some trivia. There weren't really many changes made to this. It was moved from France to the U.S. Originally, it was set in France. And the lead characters' names were changed. And I'm not going to try to pronounce one of the French characters, but they were changed from something and Jean to Stanley and John.
But yeah, John and John.
Yeah, Jean and John were the same. And it looks like Berenger, but I know it's not pronounced that way. The original French name was changed to Stanley. And I loved the name drop.
Yes.
In the restaurant scene, they actually reference Ionesco. Obviously, that wasn't in the original script. I would imagine not.
I couldn't see him doing that.
No. But... So it was put in the movie as a tribute to the source material.
Now, in full disclosure, when we did an Ionesco play, we did the same damn thing. We had no idea this movie even existed back then.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely would have. If I had known this existed sometime before, I somehow would have gotten my hands on it before now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the lesson was written by, not the lesson, the head cold.
Oh, right.
Was written by Eugene Ionesco. Yeah. So I didn't have to memorize it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do have a couple of issues. First off, I don't really like how the skeptic was treated. There's this one guy in the accounting office who doesn't believe any of it. He's a hardcore skeptic, but he's also a conspiracy nut. And in 59 or 74, I guess that was a reasonable connection to make because, the skeptic movement hadn't really started. I don't know, it just kind of irked me a little bit, though I did like that they showed that he wasn't immune to herd mentality.
Well, right. He wasn't really a skeptic at all. Because I think he had the mask of individuality, but he was really following along whatever the boss wanted, him to do.
Well, and as he's monologuing when he's climbing down the ladder, the firemen are applauding him.
Right.
Which I didn't get until about a half hour after the movie, and I realized, herd mentality.
Right.
There are also a lot of shots of people running away from unseen things. You don't see the rhinos at all in this movie. It's all shadows and sound effects.
How great would a movie version of Transformers be if they never showed the fucking Transformers?
Yes.
I'm like, there's your movie. They all this shit just gets destroyed, but you never actually see what destroys it. That's brilliant.
But all those shots of people running away from something you didn't see really reminded me of the original Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Which I think borrowed heavily from this. Although I don't know how many people would have seen it at that point. It was produced and released as part of the American Film Theater, which adapted theatrical works for a subscription-driven cinema series.
Wow. I imagine if you lived in a major city, you had to have been able to have seen this.
Possibly, yeah. But also, it's Ionesco. How many people know who Ionesco is today, let alone in 74?
Well, right. And then when you do know about him, getting past all of this.
Yeah. You have to know about him and then be able to appreciate his work.
Right.
Which I'll admit, when we did Paul Soprano back at OCC, I didn't get it at all.
I don't know how many times it took me to read it to really get it.
Well, I don't think I understand the piece today, but just the whole absurdist thing didn't make sense to me at the time. I just, needed to be exposed to more of it. Now, on to my favorite part of the movie by far. This is our Wilder tribute, but I gotta give it to Mostel. First off, the beginning of the transformation scene, he's under a sheet, and I thought he was going to be transforming under the sheet.
Yeah, I thought he was going to lift the sheet out and there was going to be a rhino.
Mm-hmm. They lift the sheet. It had to be a head fake because he looks perfectly normal when the sheet comes off.
Well, they do a couple head fakes there.
Mm-hmm. But then he goes into the full transformation, and of course we never actually see him turn because they didn't have the effects budget. Or I don't even know if they could have done it at the time. But what he does with some incredible vocal gymnastics and just destroying this apartment. Mostel won the Tony in 61 for his role in this as John.
Yeah.
Should have won the Oscar. For that transformation scene alone.
The other thing about Ionesco is you love how he just throws everything out the window. It just, I mean, the whole where he's going to make the escape to open the door, and there he is, and he's all calm and just like, let's get back inside and talk this over.
Somehow John got from the bedroom to outside of the apartment. Who knows how? And there was a great sort of brief debate about what I'm going to say rationalism versus primitivism. Kind of civilization versus primitivism.
Right.
Mostel, who's turning into the rhino, is going on about the virtues of instinct and being primitive and, getting back to our roots. And Stanley is talking about the importance of, civilization and rationalism and, being evolved.
And I felt like this was written in 2016.
And there's just so much here. Because, yes, on the surface, it's about, being an individual. But he included so many other questions in the script.
Yeah. And
he doesn't answer any of them. He doesn't even answer the individual thing. He just raises the questions.
In fact, I had to take a step back to, they are saying being a rhinoceros is bad, right?
Yeah, that's the question. And that transformation scene also showed what an amazing straight man Wilder was.
The best. He has to have been the best fucking straight man of all time. And that's saying a lot.
I mean, that's what he did for his entire career. He was the straight man. But to just sit there while while Mostel was doing all of that and just play that dead straight against it was just genius.
And seeing him doing Ionesco too, going from so vulnerable to so manic. I mean, he really did. I think he's the one that should have been got an Oscar.
Well, yeah, it's true. Mostel's performance was more noticeable, but Wilder's performance was really, if you look at it, amazing because
he put everything up there,
and he brought the same earnestness that he brought to every role to this insanity.
Right, and including the insanity part too for himself.
Yeah, true. At the end,
the delirium that he was going through. Never for a second do you doubt any of it,
Yeah, it's true. Just rolling back a touch, one other little issue with the movie. When he gets off the bus, when he comes home, after the whole thing at the office, when they finally all see the rhinos, they make this show of how you can't see anybody's face.
Yes.
A little heavy-handed. I mean, for Ionesco, heavy-handed, I guess.
Well, I don't know. They probably didn't have that in the original.
Oh, okay.
Because think about it. They wouldn't have... Well, maybe they would. He would have written something like that for a brief, like, people walking across the stage. But
well, yeah, he couldn't have gone that big with it. That's true.
Right.
You just kind of put a pin in the whole individualist versus sheep thing for me. And it was just, a brief moment of getting a little heavy-handed in a movie that is anything but. So I can't really ding it.
The line about like, if you're just nice to them, they'll ignore you. And just, wow, what the fuck? What about, and this I had to like check what year this movie really was done. Despite seeing a young Gene Wilder and everything, they talk about, I mean, they didn't use the words, political correctness or PC or the culture of offense, but it was there.
Yeah, they were discussing
it in the office before, their workday began. And it just felt like these guys all knew this shit was going to happen. How did they know this, man?
Well, it did have its seeds in the 70s. So if that was created for the movie, it makes sense. If Ionesco came up with that, he was a time traveler.
You're right. But I don't know, 74 even seems a bit early for all this. I mean, it almost seemed like, wow, wait a minute, a black boss and everything in 74. You're kind of like, I mean, I guess it was possible, but you would think that
Well, that was kind of a Star Trek move. It was, if only.
But he was really good too.
Oh yeah, I can't criticize any of the performances.
I wish they had used some of those other accountants more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly Carl the skeptic. They cut him out too quickly.
Well, yeah, you would think the skeptic or the nonconformist would have had more of a part in this.
And I think doing more to show that he really did end up conforming would hit the point home a little more.
Yeah.
They kind of leave that as a subtle little point in the background, which I can't really criticize. I like that they make you figure that out for yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to nitpick a couple of things in the end. And by end, I mean the last half hour of the movie, practically. Yeah. It's everything from when Norman shows up at his apartment to the actual ending. When Daisy came in, the window was already open, and they didn't close it afterward. Yet there were wild rhinoceros running around, and they had the door locked. Seemed odd that they didn't have the window closed. And also, when he reaches for the bottle under the bed, there was already one on the nightstand. I don't know if these were mistakes because it was Ionesco.
But the window, he didn't live on the ground floor.
Well, true, but we still saw shadows of rhinos in the curtains.
True, but he's going to board the window up on at least the second floor. The rhinoceros ain't going to use the fire escape.
But again, we saw the shadow.
But the shadow turned out to be Daisy.
Oh, that's true. It was Daisy. You're right. I forgot. That's how they knew she was there.
It looked like a rhinoceros. Which is the closest you get to actually seeing a rhinoceros, with the exception of the museum in the beginning.
Yeah, I think there's one other shadow we saw. Also, how were their children going to have children if they were the only two humans left?
You are not nitpicking, Ionesco.
This is my whole point. I don't know if I can nitpick it. I want to nitpick it, but it's Ionesco. It all could have been perfectly intentional.
You know he fucks with people like you.
Yeah. My instinct is to nitpick it and to ding it, but for all I know, that was perfectly planned.
You're just the type of person he would fuck with.
Exactly. Yes.
No, that doesn't make any sense. And he'd be like, yep, I know.
Well, I'm not exactly that, because I understand it doesn't make sense. I'm not really, losing my shit over it. I don't know if it was a mistake or intentional. And it's not that it doesn't make sense or it should make sense. I just don't know which it is. I think that's the part that's really fucking with me. Now, Wilder had one more moment of absolute genius. The last, what would you say, 10 minutes was just a monologue?
Oh, yeah. The staring at the mirror, it
was after Karen Black's character, Daisy, had turned, and he was the only one left.
Just, textbook Ionesco, just ending with utter bleakness.
And there's a line, people who try to hang on to their individuality always come to a bad end.
Yeah.
Was that stating the point of the movie or not?
Well, I don't know. Is he saying, is it worth it or not?
Uh-huh.
It's not going to be easy. You're not going to come to a good end necessarily.
Well, and I loved the ending that we actually got, because he climbs up to the top of the building and just camps out and says, I'll fight him if I need to.
Who lights a cigarette.
Yeah.
And he screams that he's not going to capitulate.
Mm-hmm. Very inspiring ending.
Which, of course, if you're thinking, if this is originally taking place in France, and he's yelling that he's not going to capitulate,
right?
He's going to kill some Nazis.
Well, not if it's in the late 50s.
Well, right.
It was a little after that. It might have been inspired by that. Obviously, Ionesco lived through that.
Yeah.
I know it informed his work, so, it wasn't specifically about that, but, I think just in general, given the nature of his work, he was probably always an outsider in some way.
Yeah.
I kind of get that impression. So, I think for him, this was just a general mission statement.
Yeah, I'm not really all that familiar with his later work, but yeah, the stuff from the 50s, a lot of this was what he was working out.
Yeah. Now, it did get some negative reviews. Jay Cox, reviewing the film for Time, faulted the film for its upbeat, frantic vulgarization of the Ionesco text, arguing that O'Horgan, the director, removed not only the politics, but the resonance as well. What remains is a squeaky sermon on the virtues of nonconformity. I would love to, see the actual play to see what he's talking about.
Well, I don't think it was written in English by Ionesco, was it?
Well, I would imagine probably not. Was he was originally from somewhere in Eastern Europe, right?
Yeah, he's Czech, I believe.
Czech, okay, and lived in France after that.
But, yeah.
So probably didn't write it in English.
I thought he wrote some plays. He may have translated some plays on his own, but he did this one.
And Vincent Canby, writing for the New York Times, dismissed the film as an unreliable mouthpiece and an unreliable metaphor so grossly over-directed by Tom O'Horgan that you might get the idea that O'Horgan thought he was making a movie for an audience made up entirely of rhinoceroses instead of people.
I'm sorry, he's Romanian.
Okay. Ionesco, I got I kind of sounds a bit Eastern European, but I wasn't exactly sure where he was from. So, okay, one criticized that too much was removed. So, okay, I can accept that because I don't know the original. But so over-directed that it might have been all made for rhinoceroses? This movie is going to go over the head of about 90% of the people who see it, I think. Oh, one last bit of trivia before we move on. This was first announced in 1967 with Ealing Studios great Alexander McKendrick set to direct. Peter Sellers and Peter Ustinov were to star, and John Cowley was producer. Unfortunately, it did not go ahead. This was many of McKendrick's projects which failed to materialize. Ealing Studios, who did an amazing movie called The Man in the White Suit, starring Alec Guinness, which we need to review at some point.
Yeah.
I love their work just because of that movie, which was amazing. But Sellers and Ustinov as presumably Stanley and John in that order.
I can't see them being better than Wilder, though, either one of them.
So Ustinov instead of Mostel. Yeah, Mostel went bigger. Sellers, it's Sellers. He would be amazing in anything. Although as Stanley, maybe not, because it is, again, a very staid, straight man kind of role. So Wilder was made for it.
Yeah.
On to sequels and remakes?
On to sequels and remakes.
Obviously, no room for a sequel. Actually, yeah, there is, because he survived it. But, where do you go? But a remake. The question is who plays John.
Obviously, this is ripe for a remake because this is relevant to this day, without a doubt.
And Giamatti would be an amazing Stanley.
Oh, wow, yeah. You can't go wrong with Giamatti.
Oh, yeah. But who do you put in Mostel's role? Who takes over for him?
I'd put John Goodman.
Oh, perfect. I completely forgot about him.
You get the Cyclops.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that needs to happen.
To play the Rhinoceros.
Who can direct?
Well,
actually, the obvious there. You mentioned Goodman.
Yeah.
Cohen's. This really is up their alley.
Well, I'm surprised the rubber guy hasn't tried to
bring
back Ionesco.
Quentin Dupieux, he really is a direct descendant of Ionesco's.
Yeah, since he was,
Yeah, he would be a great choice. I would obviously like to see the Coens just because of notoriety. And I think they can handle this kind of weirdness. And they can get Giamatti and Goodman. Quentin Dupieux couldn't get Giamatti and Goodman. Well, he might get Goodman, because Goodman will do anything, but...
If you really want to blow some heads up, you get Shane Carruth to do it.
I don't know if it really fits him. Then again, Shane, I get the impression, is going to be kind of a jack of all trades in terms of genre.
You talk about, not being able to see what, what people are terrified of.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that could be good. I mean, Shane, of course, it'll be good.
I think the pitfalls of remaking this now is you can't get away with not showing things.
That's true. That's true.
People expect to see it. They expect it to be as realistic as possible, and I mean, good CGI or whatever, or practical effects. Either way, but you have to be able to see it.
But would seeing it take away from the movie?
And I think that's what the problem is. It would take away from it, because when you can't see it, it's absurd.
Yeah.
When there's nothing there that they're reacting to, that things are just getting destroyed for no reason, which is why I thought about the Transformers, where you couldn't see the Transformers, because just shit will get destroyed. Did you see it?
And it also serves the point of the movie, because it's nothing that everybody's losing their shit over.
Yeah.
And again, if you have big CG rhinos, it doesn't really work.
It's gonna miss the point.
On to brains.
On to brains.
After much deliberation, because I didn't have a rating in my notes when we started this. In fact, I just decided while you were talking a moment ago, I really can't take any points away for the few little complaints. I'm going 5.
I'm going 5 as well. I mean, the only thing I would take off for would be the 1970s. And we can't hold the decade against it, where I thought that was good clothes and music and stuff.
And what have we learned?
Rhinoceros don't knock.
Well, I don't know that they could. I mean, the horn is... I don't know if they could angle the horn right.
Well, I get that from when they were in the scene, in his apartment, and, there's a knock at the door, and he's like, who's there? And I'm just like, I know it's an Ionesco play, but...
Right.
But, maybe he could. Opens the door, there's the rhino. How'd he knock?
And I learned that we have to fight complacency. All right, so until next time, and we'll be reviewing Tapeheads. I have no idea what to expect. It's John Cusack and Tim Robbins. Sounds like it was kind of inspired by Mike Nesmith in the early 80s.
Oh.
If you know what he was doing, with kind of the beginnings of MTV. Until then, go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course, the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And if you enjoy the show, spread the word. Give us a little word of mouth. Of course, we appreciate all of the listeners we have, but more would be better. You'll also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed so far, and every movie we're going to review, up through 304, 305, whatever's before Just to Kill. And, of course, including Monty Python and the Holy Grail at 300. I think it's mid-October for that.
We will see.
Assuming no more unscheduled weeks off.
Yeah.
You'll also find the request form. If you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form and the recommendations list. It's Ionesco. I was pretty confident it would end up on the rec list.
Well, seeing those credits, I was kind of like, ooh, is this going to actually make it?
Well, it's, as we mentioned last week, it's Ionesco, Wilder, and Mostel. It's the perfect zombie takeout movie.
Yeah, once Mostel kicked in, it was like, oh yeah, this is gonna go.
If this didn't get double fives, there would have been a problem. Of course, you can email us zombietakeout@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-CTO1 or for the alphanumerically challenged.
Rhino.
Okay. 414-368-9861. Of course, always remember that you will always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee. And until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, rest in peace, Mr. Wilder.
Yeah.
Too bad, that's all. It's just too bad.
Sponsored by Absurdism. A movie just isn't a mouthwash without the surly cup of bicycle seat.